evening, guys. Welcome to another episode of Self Care Sunday. Today, we are going to be talking about adulthood. As a kid growing up, you are dying to be an adult, but as an adult, I'm just dying to be a kid. So, let's start off with Sean. Sean, our first question of the night will be: what is your definition of adulthood?
My definition of adulthood, maturity, responsibility, time management, um, definitely attitude, encouragement, and learning how to be strong-willed because there's a lot of trials and tribulations as adults that we encounter. Um, we choose to have fun. We have plenty. We choose to take vacations and stuff like that when we can, but a lot of the times it's work, work, work. I'm sure for a lot of us, especially in not in these times, but especially in some of us are not working, some of us are working. This year has been harder than ever, but it's just it's basically everything I just said in one. And strong willed is very important. Um, like as you know, I've had my experiences where my mental capacity wasn't always there. I've made my own self sick and suffered with seizures and stuff like that from stress capacity, anxiety, and not so called being where I want to be. Um, I had a lot of trouble putting. I think we take into account that we put age barriers on places that we need to be, and that's very detrimental to our health. We don't realize that at the time, but we always begging to be older, as you said, so we could do the least important things. Because the things we want to do to be adults as when we were kids are not that important as you learn when you're an adult.
I definitely agree with Sean about um, being responsible when you become an adult, but I also want to focus on the fact that you learn the balance in life, and you don't focus on the ages of things, but as you grow older and you mature, you understand the things that are important and what's not important. So it helps you balance out your lifestyle.
The main key to me is being able, like everyone said, to adapt. Um, as you get older, as you mature, you go through ups and downs, and it's really how you deal with it, how you cope with it, um, to get through it.
Adulthood. It's a systematic process of when a person achieves um, spiritual and mental maturity. You notice I didn't say physical because we have no control over getting older. That's an automatic process. Being adult is not automatic. That is something some people get dragged into, or some people are what's the word? You're really assigned to it. But it's more a spiritual and uh, a mental process. What for? So you can take on things like responsibility, um, allowed possibly to raise other human beings, because without that, society kind of take a nosedive. Um, I really do wish it was a process that you would have to sign up for. I really do,
Right.
because
Preach.
I would have opted out of it.
They lied to
I
us.
like I like your opening remarks because being a child was wonderful.
Good times.
My cares in the I saw the world in beautiful lights and color. People were groovy. My parents were gods, and life was awesome.
Yeah.
And then one day I woke up and they said, "Well, you're supposed to do this," and I'm like, "Why?" for how long? And I was broken up when they said, well, this kind of doesn't end. And then suddenly I was having children and I was asking my father, when can I return them?
Facts.
And he said, no. But I said, but I want my life to go back to the way it was. He said, no, this is it. So I asked him for the manual on being a parent. And to my shock, horror, and dismay, none existed. And then I start to question who came up with this cockamania, crazy ass idea? Because here is probably the greatest responsibility in the world to train other human beings, but it doesn't come with a manual.
Wild stuff.
So I end up after figuring it out, after bloody hands and knees, knots on my head, and knees taken out, toes bleeding. I kind of figure it out. And I realize it's more a spiritual and a mental maturity where you can take on things like risk, management, you can take on the unknown, and you just learn to fly while falling. That's my definition of adulthood.
Speaking as an adult, right? Uh, for me, it was very simple. Once you're paying all your own bills and all of that stuff that your parents used to do for you, you do it for yourself, then you are a full scale adult. That's how I look at it. Just strictly the things that you were relying upon someone older and a caregiver for you to do, and you're now doing for yourself. Those fundamental responsibilities to me is the definition of adulthood. And then everything else that everyone else said then falls into place. Because the number one difference between being a child and an adult to me is just simply responsibility. You know, having to now answer answer for as opposed to answer to. And that changes everything. I find that you as the person don't really change. I mean, I'm in vintage age now, and I really still feel as I did when I was a teenager, except that I can't do anything different without having to think about my family members first. Like I have to consider them before just doing something crazy. And to me, that therein lies the fundamental difference. And of course, all that everyone said, the maturity and all those things, which is gradual and ongoing and it never changes. And as long as you're seeking to find a newness about who you are and to improve on yourself, then you're experiencing adulthood. But if you ain't got your own keys, then you need to check that. And it's not a diss, because everybody gets to that space at a different place and time. It's just a matter of when, for me, that. But this adulthood thing, it's a give and take. It's not as free as when you were younger, but still you have to answer to someone. Now you don't have to answer to someone, but you have to answer for. So that's just really the fundamental difference for me. Speaking as an adult, right? For me, it was very simple. Once you're paying all your own bills and all of that stuff that your parents used to do for you, you do it for yourself, then you are a full scale adult. That's how I look at it. Just strictly the things that you were relying upon someone older and a caregiver for you to do, and you're now doing for yourself. Those fundamental responsibilities to me is the definition of adulthood. And then everything else that everyone else said then falls into place. Because the number one difference between being a child and an adult to me is just simply responsibility. You know, having to now answer to answer for as opposed to answer to. And that changes everything. I find that you as the person don't really change. I mean, I'm in vintage age now, and I really still feel as I did when I was a teenager, except that I can't do anything different without having to think about my family members first. Like I have to consider them before just doing something crazy. And to me, that therein lies the fundamental difference. And of course, all that everyone said, the maturity and all those things, which is gradual and ongoing and it never changes. And as long as you're seeking to find a newness about who you are and to improve on yourself, then you're experiencing adulthood. But if you ain't got your own keys, then you need to check that. And it's not a diss, because everybody gets to that space at a different place and time. It's just a matter of when, for me, that. But this adulthood thing, it's a give and take. It's not as free as when you were younger, but still you have to answer to someone. Now you don't have to answer to someone, but you have to answer for. So that's just really the fundamental difference to me.
For me, some challenges that I face as an adult is definitely time management. Learning to be a sister, a cousin, a daughter, a friend, a professional, a wife, trying to balance all of those things for me is definitely one of the challenges of being an adult. Where as a kid, I'm going to hang out with my friends. The decision was made. Like, that's what I'm going to do. But as an adult, you're trying to be responsible and you're trying to engage with other people and maintain all of these different relationships that you have built and forged and formed, and trying not to let life get in the way of that. It's very difficult. So that's definitely one of the challenges for me.
One of the challenges for me was honestly it was poise. Just coming upon certain situations and learning how to handle them better. Not always having someone to rescue you. You having to figure it out and problem solve, because your parents will throw you in the fire unless you know, well, you're an adult now. That's not my problem. Figure it out. But I had to understand that they did the best that they could and giving me advice, and I had to carry it on and figure it out. It's a lot of problem solving, dealing with people, different people's energies and certain attitudes, and how do you handle that, because you have to learn that everybody's not going to treat you how you treat people. That's why I say poise is like one of the biggest things, because it's like, especially in the working world, you work corporate, you work city, you come across a whole bunch of different energies. Especially growing up in the hood, you have some people that's not doing whatever they do street. You have some professional people, you have people that's doing whatever they're doing, and you have to learn how to encounter those people and maintain your energy.
I agree with Shauna as far as time management. To me, that's one of the biggest things I've struggled with as an adult, knowing I have so many other things pulling me in so many different directions, and knowing where to put my time, where to put my focus, and being intentional about that. Like knowing that if I want to spend time with this person, I'm intentionally spending time with that person. If I want to put time into my career, I'm intentionally putting time into my career, and not being apologetic for wanting to spend time with the people that I want to spend time with. A lot of times as kids, we just kind of, our group of friends is whoever our group of friends is, or who we're around, and there's no real thought behind it. And as we get older, those responsibilities and things that kind of come up into our lives change. And so we have to make intentional choices about, this is who I want around me, because this is the people I know that's going to help me progress mentally, spiritually, emotionally, all that. So taking responsibility for, making those choices for yourself and setting the time out for the people that you want to be in your life is one of the biggest challenges that I've found. And I think as I've gotten older, it's it's become easier for me to verbalize that, yes, you are somebody that I want in my life, or no, you're not somebody that I want in my life. And knowing that if you are in my life, you're there for a purpose. And I'm not just hanging on to people for the sake of hanging on to people. You serve a purpose to me, and you're enriching me in some way, some shape or form. And we have something that we can give to each other, and it's always harder as more things start being, involved, as you go to different careers and you move across the world, or you meet spouses and different people in your life. All that becomes a lot more complicated, but always knowing that at the end of the day, the time management, the people who you want to spend time with, always the ones who you focus on and the ones you actually do choose to do that with, not just because you have to.
I wanted everybody to like me. I did. And I couldn't understand why people did not reciprocate. And the thing is, I would go 100% to help someone. And then in the end, find out that many times, 9 times, well, 7 times out of 10, it backfires. And it was one of the hardest lessons for me to learn. And the process I had to learn was to figure out who I am and then realize that everybody is not necessarily my friends. Then I have to understand what is a friend, because I was mixing up friends and associates and everybody and handing out titles to them, and it went horribly wrong. Betrayal, disappointment, and then to boot, I had a temper that is worse than a volcano, because when I explode. And when I cut you out, I cut you out for life. So I needed to balance that energy. And it took a long time for me to figure out it is not my job to make people like me. I had to learn to be comfortable with me, fall in love with me, and make sure I'm okay. Now, when I understand who I am, I decide who I want in my circle and who I don't. Why? Because people come with different energies. And I realized some of my energy vampires. They were bringing me down. So I learned that the opposite of that is rocket booster friends. Friends who will be honest with you, and you give them permission to say, hey dude, you screwed up, in a loving way. And I learned to accept criticism and move forward. So no longer do I need to want people to like me and to think I'm a nice guy. That is in the rear view mirror now. So that is one of the growth spurts that I've had, and I'm very proud of myself, and I'm very comfortable where I am right now. Don't need a ton of friends. I just have a few true blue ride or die. I'm good.
For me, I just want to go back to being a kid, man. Too much bills.
Right.
I don't know who came up with this idea that you gotta pay to live in this world that we were born in for free. I don't know, but it is what it is. It's a reality that you got lives you're responsible for. That's for me. That's it for me. It's that reality. Sometimes I'll be out there on the road and I'll be thinking like, man, what if something happens? What impact that would be on my family. So these are the reality you gotta contend with, you know, being out there and knowing that something could go wrong. Those are the things that stand in front of you, and you gotta really think about it and just remain positive and be safe, hope for the best. But yeah, it's just the realization that you're responsible for lives, and
With me, it's basically learning. First, you gotta learn your own truth. Once you learn your own truth, then comes your conviction. Then, when you are able to get your conviction, then you're able to establish boundaries with people. But unless you go through that process, you're not able to set those boundaries. And then once I decided that, okay, this is my truth, this is my convictions, I began to be like, okay, the box that this society try to put you in is basically a bunch of crap. And I'm gonna go far left of the box. I mean, like the social box, where it's you have to basically graduate college, or you have to go to college in order to get a good job. You have to basically be married by 25. You have to have kids by before you're 30. You have to do all of this systematically to basically fit in socially. People are quick to label you crazy. AA, they should prepare for walking away from $50 million. More loans for having a breakdown in public. All of this stuff, they quit to label you when you go out against the grain. So I choose to be comfortable going against the grain because I know it's better and you're more free when you go against the grain, and you're more objective and you're more open-minded, non-judgmental. You're able to think for yourself and not follow someone else's imprint. Because majority of the time, I found people following other people's imprint, and they're imprinting their desires, their failures, all the negative energy onto other people, and just become like this big long cord, whereas people are interjecting and basically coming up with nothing but followers and no independent thinkers anymore.
As I got into what I would call adulthood pretty early. Once I went away to school, I never went back to my parents' house. So I had to learn on the fly. But as I've gotten older, the thing that I've learned to take with me that has helped is keeping with me the little things from childhood that I thoroughly enjoyed, and not really caring what society thinks about it. And that for me was just playing, like just playing outside. That was pure joy. So I think if we can find something from our childhood that we really enjoyed and we can hold on to that. So find your own peace, find your own place, hold on to what made you happy as long as you can and keep going. That's the trick for me.
Now that most people have shared their definition of it, let's flip it and say, what would you think your definition of being a successful adult would look like? What do you define success to be? For me, success for me is very basic. It's me getting up every day and deciding to get in the game of life, intentionally continuing and moving forward no matter what, understanding that life is a journey and growth happens along the way. So for me, being a successful adult would be me getting up and just still pounding the pavement and trying, giving it my best shot.
When I think about success, me particularly, I've always thought about it as things that I've attained. I've thought about me going to college, me moving, me getting a car. But now that I am of contentment, that seasons go. So just being okay where I am, and just, as you said before, waking up and putting my best foot forward.
I'm a firm believer is diversity so I go through is not for me per se, it's for to pass on to the next generation. So that's what I learned growing up with my grandmother and her friends, my grandfather and her friends. I learned from their wisdom, from their adversities, from their trials and tribulation. And I said, okay, they taught me their adversities, so I'm not going to try to repeat their adversities through my life. What I'm going to do is whatever adversities that I have going on, I'm going to pass forward and basically make sure no one else goes through it, the same adversities that I've been through, because that right there will break the cycle. The only thing is nowadays people are freaking hard-headed as don't know what, and they don't want to listen to nobody. So you can basically give them all the advice until they blue in the face. Unless they go through it, they're not hearing you. And that's one of the downfalls of being an adult, in my opinion.
I look at it as which a lot of people tune into now is your mental health. I learned as an adult, as growing up as an adult, how extremely important that is. As y'all stated, just being content with where you are, and to keep striving for what you want, and to know that you can achieve anything you want to achieve, even against obstacles and stuff like that. There's no one that stopped but us. And I think as an adult, I've grown and I've came to realize that as I got older, that the mental health is definitely an extreme importance. A lot of people don't like to talk about it because they're embarrassed about it. We have this persona where we don't want to allow people to know that we're going through things. And sometimes all we need to do is talk about it as we're doing now. That's why I appreciate everybody that's in here, because I'm taking a little piece from everyone. That's gonna make me a better person and allow me to make my next moves as I'm going to make. But I think mental health, as this generation is starting to touch on and seeing the importance of it, is extremely important.
I believe when something is done to perfection and actually brought to success is when you can touch someone else's life. Me. When it's really what you can do for someone else to better someone else, to give them a better perception of the state in which they're in. The smallest things do the biggest things for someone, you know? I used to think success was just about oneself. Oh, I need to be a nurse, or I need to be a doctor, or I have to be the top of the class, or I have to have this image because I'm better. And at the end of the day, it's really not just about you, it's about who's around you. We all need someone at the end of the day. But when you can actually have people in your circle, someone for you, someone to lend an ear, someone to actually be there for you in the time of need, I feel like that is a success.
I tell you this, in the line of work that I do, I'm a tech. So I happen to go into people's house, and sometimes you get a call, you show up at somebody's house, you have no idea who the hell house you're going into. And a couple of times, I ran into some very well-known CEO, which I should have known but didn't know. And I'm in their house and I'm working. And they're trying to have a conversation with you because I find, number one, some of these people are very lonely up at the top. And occasionally I would sit and listen to them. And what I find with some of these people, not all, they are very unhappy. The ones with a ton of money and nothing else. Somebody once said, and I think it's so true, some people are so poor that all they have is money. I like that definition. And I'll tell you why. Because I think being a success is a progressive realization towards a worthwhile goal that not only affects you, but it affects other people. In other words, are you bringing value to this planet as you progress each day? To me, that's you're on the road to success. What do you need as you go along? First of all, you need people. You need to be in a nurturing relationship, family, friends, because for your mental and your psychological health, that's needed. That's a key piece. See, I didn't even know that. I thought being successful is just you, the lone billionaire up on the hill who just, grace people with your presence when you feel like it and blah blah blah. It's not about that. It's about being in a relationship with people and have people around you that appreciate you. Because I once entered I was in a seminar and they called it the process peeling the onion. And it goes something like this. Why do you want a lot of money? And you said, well, because it would make me famous. Why do you want to be famous? Well, people would recognize me. Why do you want to be recognized? And it goes on and on, because what it is, you're trying to get down to the core of what it is. Because at the end of the day, guys, a ton of money is not what we need. Mm-mm. Human needs, I found out, are very simple. We need to belong. Okay? We need to be loved. And we need to know that we have value. The big house and the big car, those are trinkets. It's nice to have, but it's not the foundation. Because too many people I have met who can live anywhere in the world and they have the worst relationship with their siblings. That's not success. And we see some people with a ton of money do crazy things, and some eventually take their own life. So success to me is the art of balancing life with what's important: friendship, relationship, your health. How often have we seen people who trade their health for wealth? And then when they get there, they quickly trade the wealth to get back their health. It's a crazy process, man. So we have to find our own path and find our own truth. But I tell you this, being in a nurturing relationship with people who have your back and knowing that every day you're making the world better in some small way, kindness, gratitude, whatever, I find that to be the true definition of success.
This is going to be a little bit personal, but I would like everyone to answer this. We are all facing a pandemic right now, and I just want to know, how have you guys been coping? It's been a disaster for me. It's been very hard for me to cope during this time. Um, a lot of mental health struggles. I'm breaking down every now and again. I'm having a, difficulty feeling motivated, feeling driven, feeling like I want to continue. I feel like I've been in a routine, just like standing still for like a year, and I'm a planner, so it's very hard for me to go with the flow when I cannot see the end result that I would want. Even if I'm not going to get there, at least it puts me on a road to get somewhere. And I feel like it's been very gloomy with all this talk of lockdowns and your life is in the balance. And we've always known that our lives have been in the balance. We could have went outside and got hit by a car unpredictably, but it became very, very real in a way that we forgot about. Almost felt like a kid where you're invincible in a way. And now where you felt like your life was like in your hands, and now it just feels like, for me, it feels like, what am I going to do? It's out of my hands. So how have you guys been doing? How have you been coping with this situation?
I will say I feel like I might be one of the anomalies because I actually feel like I've been coping pretty well. Um, I have a really strong support system with my immediate family, my husband, my mom, my brother and sister. But and my work life hasn't changed. So besides the change as far as like, the masking and being socially distant with people, not being able to go out as much as I used to, not being able to travel as much as I used to, that part is difficult. But as far as everything else, my immediate life hasn't changed. I do have a little bit more worries now. My mom working with a primarily COVID population, and like one of my aunts also in the same situation. So in that aspect, the anxiety has been there just to make sure, like, Mom, are you feeling okay? Are you feeling well? And how was work today? And how did you manage? Like, I have always been somebody that likes to go out, but have no problem being in my house. So the lockdown didn't really affect me as much. And I will say, being the first year of my marriage, going through this pandemic, it actually made us spend a lot more time together that we probably wouldn't have, just because of work and throwing everything and going all over the place. And as much as we wanted to like go somewhere and celebrate our 1 year anniversary and my birthday and all those things, we just made it what it could be, So mentally, I've always been somebody that tries to find something else to put my energies into. And I just put my energies into work, honestly. And I feel like I've gotten a lot stronger within my career, and I haven't felt as much of the burden of the pandemic as a lot of people have. And I feel like I'm really blessed in that nature. My family has been overall very healthy and hasn't been affected, except for like probably the past 2 weeks now. I have 2 family members that have gotten positive results, but overall they're doing well. So I'm okay there. But for the most part, I haven't been affected like most people have. And I think I'm very grateful for that. Like, I have always been somebody that likes to go out, but have no problem being in my house. So the lockdown didn't really affect me as much. And I will say, being the first year of my marriage, going through this pandemic, it actually made us spend a lot more time together that we probably wouldn't have, just because of work and throwing everything and going all over the place. And as much as we wanted to like go somewhere and celebrate our 1 year anniversary and my birthday and all those things, we just made it what it could be, So mentally, I've always been somebody that tries to find something else to put my energies into. And I just put my energies into work, honestly. And I feel like I've gotten a lot stronger within my career, and I haven't felt as much of the burden of the pandemic as a lot of people have. And I feel like I'm really blessed in that nature. My family has been overall very healthy and hasn't been affected, except for like probably the past 2 weeks now. I have 2 family members that have gotten positive results, but overall they're doing well, so I'm okay there. But for the most part, I haven't been affected like most people have, and I think I'm very grateful for that.
I've learned a lot of things that are not important that I used to value. I think it has taught a lot of people certain things that you value is not necessarily everything. Because as human beings, a lot of times we choose to value like materialistics and things like that. It's definitely has helped my mental because my mental was messed up before the pandemic. So it brought base to my life. I can say it was I can't it was a negative in an aspect. I didn't lose family, but I lost a lot of friends, and it was kind of weird, like going to funerals on Zoom and stuff like that. But for overall aspect for me, like it was more so a positive because I got to put things into perspective. And it was kind of weird, like going to funerals on Zoom and stuff like that. But for overall aspect for me, like it was more so a positive because I got to put things into perspective.
I think that now that we are further along in the pandemic, that I am coping much better. When the pandemic first began, it was extremely hard because I did have COVID and it was brutal for me. In the process of having COVID, I also lost very close family members. So, as Sean stated before, going to funerals on Zoom or not being able to attend funerals or burying my dad and not being able to have a service was very hard to cope with. And I have my moments still. I think that going through this pandemic gave me vision and putting things into perspective, what things matter. So now I have more time to spend with my family or make my business plan or just have conversations that I normally wouldn't have had before. You find time for the things that you didn't have time for. So really understanding the value of things.
For me, it was very difficult early on. Um, I recently retired, so I went from a life of 18-hour days to, finding my own space and time. And then the pandemic hit, which kind of put me into isolation. And I would honestly have to say, for the first time in my life, I experienced some real mental issues. Started to experience anxiety to the point where, I'd have to leave my house 2, 3 in the morning just to get outside to get some air, walk around. So it was definitely a challenge. But like we said, successful adulthood is keeping the fight on. I've managed. I try to find again those little areas that I enjoy and seek those out wherever I could. And as time has gone on, I'm learning to cope. Can't say I'm fully back to where I want to be, but with what's happening in the world, some changes, politically, and the possibility of a vaccine, it just seems like hope is on the horizon. So I guess for me mentally, that is helping me to say, well, we can go back to normal. But part of my philosophy in life is no matter how bad I got it, somebody got it worse. So I never feel totally defeated, but I honestly have to say that I was challenged this time around, whereas in the past I was just floating through life. So I'm really respecting everybody's shared experience here and realizing that, it's been a challenge for most, but proud of you guys for keeping the fight up.
I wanted to touch on when I think Howard said that it was a challenge. It is definitely a challenge. I'm an educator, so not being able to go into the school building and teach my children, I feel as though at times I'm failing them because it's hard to be a teacher virtually. You're teaching different things to them on Zoom. And, if you miss one thing in math, you've missed everything, especially in the 4th grade. So being okay and that I am a good teacher but understanding that this is different and we're all learning. So not only are my students learning, but I'm learning as an educator, and my supervisors are learning also. So giving myself that grace to make mistakes and understand that that's what it's all about. You know, we can set a high standard, but the goal is to just be focused and put one foot in front of the other.
I just wanted to say thank you to any teachers, because I've been on the other end as a parent of doing remote learning with my daughter, and like it's been
It's something.
crazy. Yes, like from Wi-Fi failing to internet connection to repeating. So I want to thank all the educators and everyone, because like I know it's hard, because being on the other end is hard for me. So I can just imagine trying to do lesson plans and all that stuff. Like it's crazy, for sure.
Well, parents are now teachers too. So what are you gonna do? It takes a village.
For sure. I mean, we always teachers, but it's like that virtual, like it's different. It's a different beast to say,
It is.
especially when you're dealing with a child that know that they're home.
I feel for all the people who this COVID affect directly, as Siobhan was saying, attending a funeral via Zoom. You know, you ever had a situation where your computers keep telling you there's a new software available? And like me, I keep saying later, 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 not right now. And then one day, my computer said to me, you know what? We're going to do that 3 hour upgrade now, which happens to be the day I was in a client's house working on something. The computer said, to hell with what you're doing. You've been delaying this. We're going to do it now. And I had to sit there and watch the computer go through. And no matter what I tried, it would not function until it do that reboot that I'm putting on. This is what this whole COVID thing feels like. It feels like I woke up and there's a 3.0 and I didn't know anything about it. So I'm learning the ins and out, because my job just took a shift, a 180 degree. As Sean was saying, parents are just finding out, and most people and small businesses, how messed up their internet is. So consequently, people like me are constantly on the call, because that router in the basement, they're realizing, yeah, it doesn't work for lesson when this kid is on, that kid is on, mom is working, dad is upstairs working. It's not working out, and everybody realized we need to upgrade our Wi-Fi. So in one sense, it keeps me employed, but it's a realization that we woke up into, like, wow, the world changed. What I miss most is the simple things. At the end of the week, I go out for dinner with a couple of friends to a restaurant, nothing crazy. Have some dinner, glass of wine, a chat, occasionally a movie, because I'm like a Marvel fanatic. The other thing is seeing people's face. I'm accustomed to seeing people's face and watch their emotions as we talk. And you go into somebody's house now, all you see is their eyes. So it's a learning process, trying to cope with this new world that I just wake up into. But whatever you can do to help somebody else without endangering yourself, please do it, because a lot of people out there panicking. They don't want what to do. There's a lot of misinformation that are floating around. I don't even want to get into this right now. A lot of crazy information that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, some of us are going to wake up to the reality of what's really going on. Because honestly, a lot of stuff that are going right now, if you could slow it down and just ask the right question, then you would really know, you'd really realize you're not getting the right answer. So bottom line is this, folks. This is a time of confusion when most people don't fully understand what's really going on. So most people can be duped easily. But the thing is, use your head, use common sense, do what you have to do, follow protocols. And if your gut instincts tell you, hey, be careful, just be careful.
I was going stir crazy, straight stir crazy, because I like being out networking and meeting people, and plus the conspiracy theorist inside of me has been getting information overload because when this thing first came out, it was interspecies virus that formed somewhere in China from a pig, then it went from a bat, now it went to a raccoon. I'm like, okay, all this information out here is just too much for me. Then second, I noticed ever since in March, I believe it was, they was attacking my blood type. They was like people with O blood is less likely to get COVID, or if they do, it'd be less severe than other cases. I was like, so they trying to get my ass out of the damn house right now. I'm not falling for that. So it's been one of those things where it's been very challenging for me to stay put. But the other side of it is I finished my MBA. I got IT certifications that I'm about to get ready to finish. I got a business plan that I'm finishing up, a small story. So I just been on creative juices going. The last pandemic was polio. It took 30 years for the human body to adapt to that vaccine. So just because a vaccine is coming around doesn't mean the human body will adapt to it. But the other thing that happened during that polio outbreak was that's when you have the billionaires, old money of this country, that's when they create their money. During that, when everybody was shut down due to polio, that's when all these billionaires that run this country right now, that's when they started developing their companies, they started getting rich, and they started, creating their legacies. So the way I feel, if people don't come on the other side of this pandemic with no new skill sets, new motivation, new guidelines, then you just wasted this time.
According to the CDC, it takes an average of 10 years to develop a vaccine. This is not Michael saying that, this is the CDC. An average of 8 to 10 years to develop a vaccine for whatever. After you develop a vaccine, you need to do clinical trials, which means you need to test the damn thing. So you start with animals, then you start with people. So the trial period is usually 3 to 5 years, guys. Now we're up into 13 years from inception to distribution. Okay? That's pretty simple, pretty logical. When did the pandemic hit? March. And we're in December, just a couple of months, not even a year. And somebody comes out of blues and tell us that, oh, we have a vaccine. Really? When did you test it? Well, we got permission. We skipped the human trial part. So basically, we're going to give the population a vaccine that is untested in real life, unproven, but it says so on paper. And most people are going to line up and take this vaccine and don't ask a single question. And I'm saying, if that is your thing, I don't have a problem with that. Me, I just have a ton of questions that I need to be answered. And for those who are going to tell me that the CDC and the FDA are authority, I would really laugh at you, because I can cite you many documents that shows they're in a compromising position. I'm saying, folks, ask questions. Ask questions. I am skeptical that you can bring a vaccine to market this quick. According to the CDC, it takes an average of 10 years to develop a vaccine. This is not Michael saying that, this is the CDC. An average of 8 to 10 years to develop a vaccine for whatever. After you develop a vaccine, you need to do clinical trials, which means you need to test the damn thing. So you start with animals, then you start with people. So the trial period is usually 3 to 5 years, guys. Now we're up into 13 years from inception to distribution. Okay? That's pretty simple, pretty logical. When did the pandemic hit? March. And we're in December, just a couple of months, not even a year. And somebody comes out of blues and tell us that, oh, we have a vaccine. Really? When did you test it? Well, we got permission. We skipped the human trial part. So basically, we're going to give the population a vaccine that is untested in real life, unproven, but it says so on paper. And most people are going to line up and take this vaccine and don't ask a single question. And I'm saying, if that is your thing, I don't have a problem with that. Me, I just have a ton of questions that I need to be answered. And for those who are going to tell me that the CDC and the FDA are authority, I would really laugh at you, because I can cite you many documents that shows they're in a compromising position. I'm saying, folks, ask questions. Ask questions. I am
Well,
skeptical that you can bring a vaccine to market this quick.
I know the military corps, which is basically the core of the military that basically is medical to do all the medical research and stuff like that. I'm good friends with a lot of those people who work for them. COVID has been out for at least 3 to 5 years. They've been testing for COVID for at least 3 to 5 years before it hit in China back in November. They knew about it 3 to 5 years ago. They knew this was coming because people don't realize before COVID, the one thing that was circulating in the news was we're gonna have a food shortage pretty soon. They was like in the early 20, I think by 2025, it's gonna be a food shortage. It's gonna be started being a food shortage around the whole global world. All of a sudden, prior to those years coming up, you have a respiratory virus that can basically kill out a whole lot of the population. So the thing's just not adding.
As an essential worker, I actually had a conversation today in a meeting for work, and they're talking about DC Health is putting out information soon about the vaccine and how our clinic is one of the ones that's going to be like first in line to get vaccinations. And I said, is this a voluntary thing or a mandatory thing? They said for the clinic, it's a voluntary thing. For our hospital, though, we don't know if it's voluntary or not. My concern is that all essential workers, healthcare workers, frontline workers are going to be the guinea pigs to figure out how well this vaccine works. I will quit if I'm required to do a vaccine that I have no faith in, that came out so fast that my head is spinning. My head is spinning.
Military is under government contract, so all the military service members right now, they will be required to get the vaccine without no questions. They have to follow orders or they will get court-martialed.
Wow.
I heard that.
That's just as bad.
Military is under government contract, so all the military service members right now, they will be required to get the vaccine without no questions. They have to follow orders or they will get court-martialed.
Wow.
I heard that.
That's just as bad.
I'm first in line to get the vaccine. I've done a lot of listening, a lot of understanding of the big picture. I feel that because I'm so clear about it, right? I don't want people to not protect themselves just out of simple fear. You understand?
I understand.
So I would love to be in a conversation where I can give my perspective, hear the counterpoints respectfully, and go. I'm going to be on a Zoom meeting, I think it's next Friday, with a bunch of researchers and physicians who are on the forefront of a lot of this communication. And I feel that part of my responsibility is to get that information out there to subside the fear, so that if it is something that's going to help us, that we're not taking it just out of simple fear, because our community have suffered enough from not knowing or thinking something is other than. So I'm definitely taking it.
After you get it. Let me know how you feel, and then I'll make my decision.
Oh, I'm going to be walking around like Superman because I'll be fearless. Okay. So, but again, I'm not going into it just gun ho. Like, I'm listening, I'm reading, I'm going back and forth. And at this moment, I am confident that it's a full go for me.